Well, then, without further ado, and we're not going to really get this time, um, I would love to introduce Paul. Um, Paul is not only is Paul a part of the Undiagnosed Diseases Network, but Paul is also one of the most outwardly kind humans that I've met on my rare disease experience. I've been to a few conferences at this point, and you can feel Paul's kindness 2 miles away. So it was just lovely to meet him not too long ago, and I'm just really happy that he was able to come. And just thank you, Paul. Please um,
Great.
take the stage.
All right. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for inviting me, Nate. This is such an honor and a privilege to be part of today. So thank you. As Nate said, I am Paul, and I'm gay, but I'm also a project manager for the Undiagnosed Diseases Network research study at Harvard Medical School. So you can only imagine that rather recently, there's been a lot of activity, not only in my personal life, but also in my work life, with Harvard being in the limelight. Um, I come to today I wanted to come to today, filled with love, light, peace, maybe singing Kumbaya and saying Happy Pride. But unfortunately, on Wednesday, when I learned that the US Navy is going to rename an oil tanker that had been named after slain gay advocate Harvey Milk because of our current administration wants to ensure that military names are a reflection of our commander-in-chief priorities in our nation's histories. And I was letting that resonate with me when I was reminded of a quote from one of my living heroes, excuse me, now passed, but he was such part of my life. He still lives here, Larry Kramer. And Larry said, being gay is a natural, normal, beautiful variation on being human, period, end of subject. Therefore, any argument which says differently is an immoral, supremacist one. Call it out as such. Be outraged, offended, angry, intolerant, and discuss anyone who describes you as unequal, undeserving, or unnatural for just being who you are. I am here today. And I'm here today with my heart full of love, anger, fight, and as Katrina said, with fire inside me. As we know, on June 28th, it'll be the 56th anniversary of the Stonewall riots. The Stonewall riots marked a new beginning in the gay rights movement, not only here in the United States, but also in the world. It was June 26, 1978, Gay Pride Boston, which marked my new beginning of my personal gay rights movement. Marching along the streets, we received cheers, we had stones thrown at us, and curses. Yet, I marched proudly. I marched loudly because I knew at that very moment I was part of a community and I belonged in that community. Life felt pretty awesome. 3 years later, members in our community were dying of pneumocystic pneumonia, known as PCP. Many of these people were my love family and closest friends. I remember, as if it was just yesterday, looking outside the window of this very window behind me of my home on the street, often lined with ambulances, of love family, friends, and neighbors being carried away to local Boston hospitals. And as I looked at that reflection in the window, I said, what does a young guy do when the community of friends, family, and neighbors are dying? I'll tell you what I did. In 1988, I attended my first AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, known as ACT UP. I attended an ACT UP Boston protest. It was a protest regarding the delays and red tape around approval for AZT and other treatment drugs for HIV. There were many die-ins and protests that I attended. The issues were resolved. We won the fight. Then there was the next fight, the fight for same-sex marriage in Boston. That fight ended in 2019. I happen to be the 34th couple in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to get a license. I was married in 2009. A new normal, which brings me to today. My new normal, and yet another fight. A fight where we know that approximately 7.1% of the adults in the United States openly identify as part of the LGBTQ plus community. And despite recent progress, the LGBT community endures marginalization and medical alienation. Inequities are arising from social and structural barriers, significant to exacerbate adverse health outcomes among the LGBT community, living undiagnosed, ultra rare, and rare in our community. There are 6 common challenges that I see in our community. 1, the delay or misdiagnoses. There's a lack of awareness with doctors who aren't familiar with rare diseases, leading to misdiagnoses or even delays in finding a diagnosis in the first place. Quite often, rare disease symptoms mimic more common conditions, leading to years and years of uncertainty and the diagnostic odyssey. Then there's the limited access to specialists. Specialists who understand rare diseases often work in large academic centers, which can be far for patients from where they live. Patients may need to travel long distances or even international to get proper evaluation and treatment. Then there's the treatment gaps. Because rare diseases affect such a small population, pharmaceutical companies are not invested in developing treatments, leading into the lack of appropriate and approved therapies. When treatments do exist, they're often off-label, meaning that they weren't specifically treated for that condition, which can cause issues and also medical coverage issues. And then there, as Katrina mentioned, there's the financial burden. Between frequent tests, specialist visits, travel costs, they all add up really quickly. Many treatments are not covered by our current authorization and insurance, causing delays or denials. Then there's fragmented care. People who often need to see many people in our community need to see multiple specialists, but there isn't always a well-managed coordinating effort, leading in redundancy of tests and conflicting advice. Medical records might not be shared easily between providers. And of course, there's the social challenges that we experience. We often feel, being rare or undiagnosed or ultra rare, we feel alone, marginalized, alienated, just because of the rarity of our condition, which can lead to stress and depression. There needs to be more local support groups and patient networks. There are some ways that we can address these issues. Training general practitioners and specialists to recognize rare disease sooner, expanding telemedicine to connect patients with distant specialists, encouraging orphan drug development and expanding insurance coverage for off-label treatments, and supporting organizations that build network, fund research, and provide emotional support. I'm fighting. I need you to join me in the fight for the GBTL community, the undiagnosed, the ultra rare, and the rare. Organizations like NORD and Every Life are very actively advocating against the proposed Medicare cuts and current administration priorities. And like Lisa said, please contact your legislators and share your story. Paul the Plagiarizer says, being undiagnosed, rare, or ultra rare is a natural, beautiful variation of being human. Period. End of subject. Therefore, any argument which says differently is an immoral, supremacist one. Call it out as such. Be outraged with me, offended, angry, and intolerant of any discussion or anyone who describes you as unequal, undeserving, or unnatural, just being the way you are. As I mentioned earlier, June 28th, we'll be celebrating the 56th Stonewall, the year of the Stonewall riots. What some of you may not know that on June 22nd of 1996, 6 days before the riot, Judy Garland, and for those too young to maybe even know who Judy Garland is, she was a gay icon. Our community was grieving the loss. We got together as community at the Stonewall Inn. The drag queens, the leathers, the bears, the twinks, whatever you wanted to call it, we were there as community, mourning in the loss of Judy when the raid took place. In full disclosure, emotions were high. We were charged. The drag queens took off their heels and we fought back. This is time for all of us in this community to say the silent out loud, to make sure that our voices are not only heard, they're listened to. And with that, I say happy Pride.
Oh, that was incredible. That was incredible. And you have a really unique way of speaking. I just like this will not be my first time crying this evening, so prepare yourselves. Um, Paul, you gave us a lot of, for lack of better words, initiatives. Um, and that you really hit on the true nature of your story and you hit on the things that we need to change. And it's so powerful. And I really just appreciate you for being able to be here. Um, because that was needed. I needed that. And happy Pride. Paul reminded me that I didn't say happy Pride, which is probably something I should have done at the beginning of this. But happy Pride, y'all. Happy Pride. Yes. And
Good.
Paul is so real too. I really enjoy. I want us to be able to use our voices without feeling afraid of what that may cause. I feel like the whole purpose of advocacy is that. Um, and then, but I don't always feel like I can use it. So I really like how Paul just says what's real. Um, yeah. Any questions for Paul?
I have comments. I just loved what you were saying. It just felt like you were speaking my life. One of the things that's been happening in the past 5 years is people have been encouraging me to open up and they want to know more about me. They want me to speak out. But I think what folks don't quite understand is it took a lot for me to be able to say that Dora is my partner. That didn't start until 5 years ago because I knew I could not tell this ALS story without telling the truth. But Dora and I have pretty much been in the closet for 23 years. And when you think about that, how horrible it is to be with somebody that you love and you can't tell the world that you love this person because of all the stuff. There was a law here. I know it was in, or they were thinking about it here in Mississippi, that if you were a same sex couple, that you were not going to be entitled to, people could refuse to serve you based on their religious beliefs. So if the house caught on fire, because of the lack of water that we have here, that it's not, we don't have any water in the fire hydrants, but the firemen could come and say, well, it's against our religion to put the fire out at your house. So, because of your lifestyle. And and that's just, when you think about it, that's just so sick. And so you learn how to become compliant to this system, and you don't talk about who you are. And there's this sense of blame, even when people ask questions, and they're well meaning questions, but the burden of the blame is on, well, for right now, it's on me. So the questions that a lot of people ask after I speak is, wow, why didn't Dora's family like you? Is it because you're black? Is it because you're 25 years younger? Is it because you're, y'all were in a gay relationship or whatever they want to call it? And I've stopped answering that question because what you're asking here is what was wrong with us that her family didn't like us. What if we were not the problem? And and to really look at this thing, I don't have a marriage certificate. I don't have a ring. The house is in my name. There was absolutely nothing tying us, that says, hey, I've got to take care of her, except the love in my heart. And but yet I've got to be burdened with being wrong and bad because her family was guilty for not coming. They had the money. I can't drive, so I can't even drive her to appointments. I gave my complete all. And then you have to ask a question about what did I do wrong. So yeah, I could talk all day about everything that you said, Paul, and I really appreciate you for saying it. And just everybody, we down here from the South. Everybody's praying, but whatever the word, keep me in your thoughts as I continue to try to open up and really tell the truth, not just for, because it's easier for me to tell the truth for others,
Mhm.
but to tell the truth for myself. I'm at a point where I'm reevaluating my advocacy work. So
Mhm.
the question for me is not whether to advocate or not to advocate. The question is more about having a bigger portion of my work reflect what Dora and I went through and who
Mhm.
we are. So most of my work right now, and I have some wonderful causes, and I really believe in the veterans with ALS and people of color with ALS, but I've not done very much uh, LGBTQ. And
Well,
I don't sit in many meetings where we talk about that.
but you're here today, and it's such an
Yes.
honor and a privilege to have you share your story and to hear your story, Katrina. And so you're taking steps, you're moving forward because having Nate bring us together today provides us with an opportunity to bring our individual voices to one voice here today. This one voice today, which consists of many, is going to be brought to the next place. And it may be just adding on. We have to create one voice. So as we're
Yes.
doing that in the rare disease community and in our GBLTQ plus communities, we need to continue to um, show signs that we're there. And you could do things subtly, and don't hesitate to reach out to me. And I'm happy to sort of give you um, some thoughts that I have about advocacy work. And the foundation for our research study does great advocacy work for the rare, ultra rare, and undiagnosed disease community. So there are places where you could ride on the coattails of some things that are done and continue um, your partner's memory. Okay.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Paul, because I already made a note uh, to get your contact information. So
You got it.
I'm glad we're on the same page.
We
Thank
are.
you.
We are. You got it, my friend. Is there
Courtney.
any, is there any other questions?
Yeah, if I can just quickly say, I just really want to thank you both, Paul and Katrina, for sharing your stories with such grace and depth. There's something that can still often feel really isolating about being a young queer person, where you're trying to imagine yourself growing up and getting old, and you don't necessarily feel like you can envision like real role models and people who have lived these experiences, who've struggled with these issues, who've protested over time, who've fought through like so many different barriers. And like hearing about someone who was just like on the ground in Boston, like joining a local ACT UP chapter, like trying their best to support friends, to live with that grief. Like I just see so much in that that is so, so useful and heartening to hear as a young queer person and to like build that intergenerational community. So I just like really want to say thank you for sharing that. That was just so powerful.
Well, you're welcome. Um, and part of it, probably not knowing this when I was your age, was to hear you right now. So live life the fullest that you can. Live it with intention, drive, and knowing that there is a history in our community. And it brought us to the place that we are today in our community. We still have work to do. We still have work to do, especially with this current administration. Their priorities and ours are very different. So when I was invited to bring together, or to highlight the intersection of queer and rare, there's more than an intersection. It is a major intersection. And so we have our work cut out, and this is not a time for us to be silent. It's a time for us to do whatever we can do to make changes as we grow in our community, both the LGBTQ plus community and our undiagnosed rare and ultra rare disease communities.
Thank you, Paul. Um, does anybody else have anything they would like to say to Paul?
I just want to say that at the beginning of your talk, I could hear some weariness of the fight. And I just wanted to say that you're not alone. That you're like you're not alone in this fight. Don't bear the burden all by yourself. We're here.
Appreciate hearing that. That's a great one, Helen. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I agree, Helen. I feel you 100%, Paul. On a really deep, like really deep level. I really feel you. And I think that fire that you, Katrina, mentioned is very much needed. Um, we need, and you're right, our voices collectively come together to form one, which is something that I love because I think that in order to have things that we're aiming for or fighting for, those things need to be created by, or like, assembled by the people who need them. And so hopefully, we can find more voices to help us grow and make this unit louder. But I'm just really, again, very thankful that you were able to be here, and that you were so honest. I really, I really love that. Um, so yeah.